Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first Renfrew County Housing Corporation meeting of 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Land acknowledgement. As we gather this afternoon, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on traditional territory of the First Nations. Do I have to do something else? Should I start again? No? Okay. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. We are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Thank you. Roll call.
Yes, Chair, roll has been taken and we have quorum.
Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none. Adoption of minutes of previous meeting held on October 13th, 2022. These were approved by the warden and the CAO. Delegations, there are none at time of mailing. So we'll go directly to the director's report, please. Director Lepine.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members of Renfrew County Housing Corporation Board of Directors. It's so nice to welcome you to the first meeting and to see you here today. My report begins on page 2 of your electronic package. So my first item is an information item, and it's our Community Housing Capitals Project update. To just make this board aware that the Renfrew County Housing Corporation has two parts. We have a bricks and mortar part, which reflects our actual housing stock, and then we have our programs and services. So the housing stock of bricks and mortar is managed by Mr. Kevin Raditz of the Property and Development Department. And with your indulgence, Chair, maybe I could ask Mr. Raditz to speak to that part of the report, please.
Yes.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, to the board. In the attached appendix is the summary of the 2022 capital projects valued over $50,000 in 2022, and it's a year-end update. So as you can see, we have 7 completed projects. There will be 2 projects that will be deferred. That is the in reference to the townhome. It's the 75 Stafford Street, Barry's Bay. We'll be deferring that to 2023. And then, of course, the townhome blocks in Pembroke pertaining to the siding and soffit, that'll be deferred also to 2023. And then we have 4 roofing projects that will be also deferred or delayed. They have been awarded in 2022, but due to the winter conditions, we've delayed the work until the spring, which the projects will commence in the spring, and that is the 3 flat roof replacement projects, and we anticipate that they would be completed by the end of the second quarter in 2022. And then the other project it's 50% completed, but that will also that'll commence in late spring and should be finished early May. And that is essentially the update for the 2022 projects, capital projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 2 is a resolution, and it's an appointment of the Chair and Vice Chair. Chair, may I read the recommendation?
Please. Yes.
Thank you. The recommendation is that Councillor Ann Giardini be appointed as Chair and Councillor Debbie Grills be appointed as Vice Chair of the Renfrew County Housing Corporation.
I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Warden Emo and seconded by Mayor Giacomo. Any discussion? Or all in favor? Any discussion? Comments? No? All in favor? Carried. Okay, continue.
Thank
please.
you. Moving on to item number 3, which is the signing authority, and I'll go ahead and read the recommendation.
Please.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the signing authority for the Renfrew County Housing Corporation will be 2 of the following 5 names. We've got Ann Giardini as chair, Jeffrey Foss, treasurer, Craig Kelly, chief executive officer, Laura Lepine, chief operating officer, and Daniel Burke, manager of finance.
I need a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Grills. Councillor Service. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Continue, please.
Chair, that concludes my part of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the Jennifer Dombrowski, the manager of... Oh, yes. Okay. Mover and a seconder to adopt the director's report as a whole. Mover, please. Oh. Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Grills. All in favor? Carried. Forgive me for not knowing your names right off. It'll come. Okay, next on the agenda is the Manager of Housing and Homelessness Monthly Report, Jennifer Dombrowski. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. The report begins on page 5 of the electronic version. Starting with information item 1, which is an overview of the housing services. The Renfrew County Housing Corporation properties, otherwise known as our rent geared to income properties, are throughout the county of Renfrew, and there's a total of 1,020 units. The subsidy rate depends on the household income and is set by an Ontario regulation. In addition to assessing subsidy based on income, we also look at the assets that the household has, and the assets must be below $50,000. Rent geared to income is normally calculated as about 30% of adjusted net family income. Otherwise, we look at line 236 of the income tax notice of assessment. And it's the Housing Services Act that sets the rates for rent geared to income. And within those rates, there are separate tables for those who have income from Ontario Works or the Ontario Disability Support Program. As of January 2023, within our tenancies, 1,020, 73 households were paying rent at the maximum rate, otherwise known as market rent. And that is about 7% of our total tenancies. Moving on, another service that we provide is tenancy supports. We have an integrated and person-centered focus on helping our tenants live life as healthily and safely as possible within our units. We have caseworkers that take a one-on-one approach to getting to know the tenants and assessing if they need referrals to other services, really focusing on taking that individual approach so that the person can continue to be safely housed, and really focusing on housing retention. Assistance can be provided through financial supports, and everything just down to keeping communication going, helping people fill out forms, understanding what else might be available in the community to them. Within our services, we also manage a housing registry wait list, and we do this for the properties that are owned through Renfrew County Housing Corporation, as well as the nonprofit housing properties that the county has a relationship with throughout our area. So the 5 nonprofit housing organizations within Renfrew County, for which we are a service manager, are Kinsman Court Home in Pembroke, St. Joseph Nonprofit Housing Corporation in Pembroke, Baskin Place in Arnprior, Petawawa Housing Corporation, and the Killaloe and District Housing Incorporated. And as of November 30th, 2022, we had 1,307 eligible households that were waiting for an RGI, rent geared to income housing unit, or supplement within the county. We also provide services for rent geared to income supplements within the private markets. So with landlords that are private market landlords, no affiliation with the County of Renfrew. So our budget for this is about $284,500, which represents assistance that flows out to about 35 to 40 households. And the rent supplement is calculated the same way that we calculate rent for those who live at the Renfrew County Housing Corporation properties. Next, we have our homelessness prevention program, Strong Communities Rent Subsidy. And again, this is a private market rent subsidy. The budget is approximately, or is, $145,000, and this represents assistance that flows out to about 18 to 20 households. And next, we have the homelessness prevention program rent allowance. The budget for this is $600,000. And this flows out rent supports to 150 to about 160 households. The rent allowance is calculated, the rent supplement for this program is calculated different than we do for the rent geared to income. It's a flat rate that's paid out. So $275 is paid for households without children, and $375 is paid out for households that have children, and this is a monthly rate that would be paid directly to the landlord. Also within the homelessness prevention program funding, we have Emergency Minor Home Repair Assistance Program, and the budget for this is $150,000, which represents assistance to approximately 20 or more households, and this varies depending on what the grant amount would be. So the Emergency Minor Home Repair Assistance Program is available for low-income homeowners who require essential repairs that will help them to continue to stay living safely within their home. There are some eligibility rules, which are that the household income must not exceed $60,000 and the property value must not exceed $250,000. And this is a one-time grant, and the maximum grant amount is $7,500. The Investment in Affordable Housing Revolving Loan Fund is a legacy fund that has stayed with us from funding that ceased during 2019. So the Investment in Affordable Housing, IAH, was an initiative where the province cost-matched federal funding to help service managers in deploying affordable housing strategies. So one of the strategies that the County of Renfrew had was the Affordable Home Ownership Program. And the Affordable Home Ownership Program is still underway, and we are still accepting applications for that. To qualify, the maximum assistance that somebody can get is up to $25,000 or 10% towards the purchase of their home. And the maximum household income cannot exceed $90,400, and the maximum purchase price of the home cannot exceed $331,412, and there's also a maximum asset limit of $20,000 that is set. So again, this program is still open and can be accessed by calling the office or by going to our website, and the application link is there. Also under this investment in affordable housing, we had the Ontario Renovates program. And the Ontario Renovates program recently closed for intake towards the end of November. And the Ontario Renovates program would provide assistance of up to $10,000 for essential household repairs, and an additional grant of $3,500 could be available for accessibility upgrades. This is a forgivable loan, And we currently have about 30 applications that are in queue, meaning that they meet the eligibility criteria. However, they are waiting for their contractor to finish the work or to start the work. And once the work is completed, then we assess that the work, is completed per the approval, and we issue funds out to the contractor. So the Ontario Renovates program, it is a revolving loan fund, meaning that if the person ceases to live in their home, the agreement is that a prorated amount of the money comes back to the County of Renfrew so that we're able to have that program continue on and be offered again in future years. So that goes for both the Ontario Renovates and affordable home ownership programs. The funding, the budget amounts are within this report, and the money can't be used interchangeably. So what is designated for affordable home ownership must stay with that program, and what is designated for Ontario Renovates must stay with that program. Next up, we have the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, and this provides a direct monthly payment to eligible households to help with their rent expenses. The benefit is portable, meaning that even though they may start their eligibility within the County of Renfrew, if they move to another area, they're able to have that transfer with them. The eligibility is based on household income and average market rent rates. And to qualify, households must be eligible or actually be on the Rent Geared to Income Housing Registry waitlist. This funding is provided through an agreement between the provincial and federal levels of government. And the program started a few years ago. It's a 9-year program, and it started, over in 2020. When we looked back at our subsidy rates for 2020-2021, the average was $249 per month for those who are eligible. And you'll see a chart there that speaks to the annual allocations, and that means that we are only allocated so much funding per year to get out to Renfrew County, and the funding varies depending on community size. Next, we have our affordable housing stock and upgrades. And this is serviced through funding from the Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative and Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative. So a big part of our capital upgrades funding does come from these funding sources. And we use this money to do some upgrades within Renfrew County Housing Corporation stock, but we also look to provide supports out to the community as well. So within this budget, we are using, under COCHI, funding to replace a home over on Cecil that's within our Rent Geared to Income stock that is in need of replacement. It was not financially possible to, or wasn't financially efficient to renovate it again. We had an opinion that it would be better to replace it. So the COCHI funding will replace that one Rent Geared to Income housing unit, but we're also looking to add stock, and it'll be a duplex that will also add an affordable housing unit. We have the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative Fund, and that fund will be used to help support upgrades with the 5 nonprofit housing providers, as well as upgrades at Renfrew County Housing Corporation. And Chair, that finishes off the first information item that provides an overview of our services.
Thank you. Who continues with partnerships and committees? We do again, eh? Okay.
Yes.
Should I go on or get questions? Okay, continue, please. Okay. Thank you.
So item number 2 is an overview of our partnerships and committees. And you'll see that we are partnered with groups across Ontario. One group that I attend regularly is the Seaway Group, so that's with managers like myself, and we have a chance to talk about the trends within our communities, as well as share information and better understand initiatives that the province puts forth. We also have the Ontario Municipal Social Services Association, and that's something that the County of Renfrew Community Services has participation in within the Homelessness Network and other networks. The Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association, meetings through that association are valuable. And we also get a lot of information from them through email about housing initiatives throughout the province. And then, of course, the Renfrew County Green Operation and Asset Management Committee and the Housing Strategic Steering Committee. We also have a partnership with Built for Zero Canada. And with that partnership, we are working with a network of local community groups to collaboratively work towards reducing chronic homelessness. Built for Zero Canada is a national initiative. In the County of Renfrew, we have a coined Built for Zero Renfrew County. We are partnered with The Grind, Family and Children's Services Safe Shelter for Youth, as well as community mental health through the Pembroke Regional Hospital. During November, we received a letter of recognition from Built for Zero Canada. You'll find that on Appendix 1 of this report. And this was to acknowledge a key milestone that we achieved a quality by name list. So in future board meetings, I will be able to show you what the data looks like on the website for Built for Zero Canada, because we are now active on that website. Information item 3 is homelessness enumeration, the point in time count. So the County of Renfrew Social Community Services Department conducted a point in time count on September 18th to measure and understand the circumstances of people within Renfrew County who are experiencing homelessness. We did it in a structured way where we were asking questions to understand the experience of those who are unsheltered, emergency sheltered, or provisionally accommodated. The point in time count had 2 components. We looked at counting the number of people who were experiencing homelessness on a single night, and we were collecting information from people experiencing homelessness through standard questions. And there are, for your reference, this 17 required data points that we followed. Appendix 2, you'll see a representation of the statistics that we achieved from the data gathering. And as of that point in time count, there were 43 people who were experiencing homelessness. And you'll find how it breaks down for gender. 58% identified as male, 28% identified as female, 9% did not disclose, 2% identified as non-binary, and there was an other category of 2%. Within this, you will also see that 30% of those who were surveyed identified as being Indigenous. And there's contributing factors that we have noted here. Those who participated disclosed physical limitations, 53%, medical condition, 44%, mental health, 40%, substance abuse, 33%, cognitive limitations, 19%. This number reflects those who were at various agencies that the County of Renfrew staff partnered with. We worked with many agencies, across the whole County of Renfrew region to be able to reach out to folks. Of course, some folks, are not reflected within the survey because they were not there at the time of the survey happening, or perhaps they didn't want to share their information. I just want to note that it's important to understand that even though 43 are noted here, it's anticipated, or we know that there's actually more people experiencing homelessness than that in Renfrew County. We didn't stop with this data and just say, okay, now we know. It's something that we actually operationalize and use to help with our services and help reach out to folks. Anybody who provided their information to us through this point in time count, we now know their name. They are people that are now part of our Built for Zero Renfrew County services, where we really are striving to ensure that nobody's falling through the gaps, and that we're keeping the conversation going with folks and keeping people connected to professionals, and really taking an individual way of supporting people to a path of housing safety, housing retention, and hopefully more permanent housing. And with that, Chair, that concludes the report. Oh, and I am very sorry. I'm very remiss to not do this to start. However, I would like to introduce everybody to our supervisor, our community housing supervisor, Andrea Blackburn, who is in the back there. She just stood up. Andrea has been working with the County of Renfrew County Housing Corporation for a number of years, 20 approximately, I would think, Andrea. And she is working with staff that are at our Pembroke, Renfrew, and Arnprior locations, providing, really, critical first, point of contact work with our tenants and supporting our operations. Thank you, and that concludes the report.
Thank you very much. I need to accept the report and then ask for discussion. Oh, I don't have to get a mover and a seconder first? No? Okay. Okay, so we'll go through Ms. Dombrowski's report. Starting on page 5. Okay, and I'll ask if there are any questions or comments on each item. Number 1, the overview of community housing services. Councillor Service.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Jennifer. Thanks for all that information, Jennifer. It's a lot to take in, but it's nice to see that we have a lot of supports and services here in Renfrew County to help those in need. My question is, with all the different supports and services that we offer, do you ever get feedback from those who take advantage of these services in terms of how difficult or easy it is for them to access all these services?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the board, to our committee member. We do not have a formal strategy as far as reaching out and doing interviews with people regarding their satisfaction in services. However, we do have an access point. Of course, if anybody ever calls us, we definitely engage in their feedback and have conversations with them. And we also have an access point on the County of Renfrew website where people are able to provide feedback as well. And whenever we get feedback provided through that electronic way, we then connect with the person either by email or phone, whatever their preferred method of communication is.
Supplemental?
Supplemental?
Is that what it is?
So I guess to follow up on that question, with all of the amounts that we have there, do they always get used up every year? Which I guess would be an indicator that people are able to access them easily?
Yes, through you, Chair, to the board and our committee member. The funds are always used. A lot of our funds, they are used very quickly. Specifically, our rent geared to income, we have a wait list for that, of course. Our rent supplement or allowance programs, they're usually fully subscribed, and our intake is usually very incremental for that. So when somebody exits the program, then a spot becomes available, and that's how we get more intake, but we're at full capacity with our programs. We do have some space available right now with affordable home ownership and emergency minor home repairs. But once that capacity is achieved, then those programs are closed.
Thank you. Any more comments? Mayor Giacono? No, Mayor.
Point of order, Councillor Giacono.
Yes,
I appreciate the promotion, but
That was way
I'll
back.
pass. Jennifer, thank you very much for your report. Just jotting down some of the survey numbers. I was rather a little bit astounded that 30% of the homeless are Indigenous. Is that a trend across the country? Are there statistics, or is it more common to our area? And I also want to compliment you on establishing the, the conduit to ensure that you know who these people are now. You can refer them to mental health care, et cetera. I think that is so important in solving the problem. But is there a statistical analysis on homeless and who they are across the country? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Councillor Giacono. I'm not prepared to speak exactly on or specifically regarding Indigenous trends of homelessness across Ontario. However, there are Indigenous trends of homelessness across Ontario. So where we're seeing within this statistical survey, 30%, that is something that is very close to what's experienced across the province. Some areas will have a higher rate, and some areas might have a slightly lower rate. To the second part of your question regarding statistical information regarding homelessness, yes, there is information across, the province and nationally as well. And a good place that we go to for information would be the Built for Zero Canada website. And we're very pleased to be a partner with Built for Zero Canada, and the County of Renfrew will soon also have our data be represented in a way as other municipalities who started earlier than us to be able to get good data on that locally.
Madam Chair, if I may, the only reason I was asking is I know there are partnerships between Canada and Ontario, and with statistics of this nature, is there any ability to access more funding because we're dealing with a particular group of people that have helped build our country? Thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Councillor Giacono, you've raised a really good point, and one of the things that has come across is that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has asked all service managers in Ontario to do this point-in-time count that will collect data across all jurisdictions in Ontario to have a sense as to the homelessness picture in Ontario. We do not have access to the full roll-up of that information because they're still rolling it up. I believe that part of the intention is to have a picture of homelessness in Ontario, to be able to work with local municipalities like ourselves in terms of putting forth business cases to seek additional funding. But when it comes to the Canada-Ontario piece, there is a bilateral agreement with Canada-Ontario on housing, and there are lots of discussions that do take place. between the federal government and the provincial government when it comes to programs and the national housing strategy, and looking at providing support to specific groups. And Indigenous groups are identified as groups that need sufficient funding. However, when it comes to us putting forth business cases, we will use our data absolutely to promote for additional funding. But as you know from past committee and board experiences, there's limited funds that do come out, but when there is an opportunity, this is why this data is very valuable to us as well. But we do know that conversations are taking place. We know from different meetings that we attend that the province and the federal government do work together on rolling up cross-Canada data and looking at areas where they can infuse more dollars to support very specific target groups. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Nicholson.
You're 2 for 2.
Yes.
There you go. Question for you, Chair. The first one just has to do with the tenancy supports that were mentioned for the people living in rent-to-gear housing, or rent-to-income housing, rent-geared to income housing. I noticed you said over 1,300 people eligible people on wait lists. Do they receive the same access to those supports while they're on the eligible wait list?
I'll defer this to Jennifer, please.
Thank you, Chair. To the board, the tenancy supports are reserved for those who are tenants within the rent geared to income units. However, those who are waiting on the housing registry wait list can get supports through our community services department, and it would really depend on what the priority of need would be for them. So examples could be supports from Ontario Works, emergency financial assistance, supports through our homelessness prevention program, but definitely staff supports as far as, somebody to talk with a caseworker, to understand the circumstances, and to see if there's a way that we're able to make a referral, or perhaps within our services we would have an answer for them.
Go ahead, supplemental.
Yeah, one additional question related to the survey that was completed. I'm curious if the geographical data is available, or if it's not releasable. If there's some kind of pattern where we see people maybe move to central locations as the seasons change, like we're seeing people maybe out in rural locations through the summer, but then they move to more centralized Arnprior, Renfrew, Pembroke areas through the winter. Is that coming out through as part of that survey?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Through you to the board, not within the data that I have available today to speak to exactly, but I can let you know that throughout our history and of understanding and working with people who experience homelessness and the various data collections that we do, we know that people tend to be within the more urban areas. There is more homelessness within the city of Pembroke. That doesn't mean that there's not rural homelessness. There is. It's scattered across the county, and there definitely is a seasonal component to that as the weather changes, how people move and access different areas to stay at, different supports to work with, and so forth.
Thank you, Chair.
Director Lapine.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, just to build on what has already been spoken to, There's been a fair bit of information that has come out of the City of Ottawa where they've done some analysis in terms of homelessness and location of homelessness that I think resonates a little bit with us in Renfrew County. And some of the things that were identified is that people will often gravitate towards the services that they need, and that, you know, if there's a need for mental health support services or medical services or access to supports in family, they often will gravitate towards those areas. In most cases, and not all cases, but in most cases, the homelessness population often do not have access to reliable transportation, so they often will gravitate to where they can be more mobile. Doesn't mean that that's the case all the time, because we have certainly seen through our homelessness program that where we do provide emergency shelter overnight, that we are providing shelter in Deep River. We are providing shelter to people in Eganville and Killaloe and in Cobden and other areas. Often there's no shelter provision in some of those communities, so they have to come. We will assist them to come to potentially a motel or hotel in one of our more urban centers. And what we have found is that once they are located there, they have access to services, they tend to set up there until they become more stable and then move back to whatever community they're more comfortable. So I think it's important to know that we know that homelessness exists in all of our communities, but accessing whatever somebody needs may mean that they have to move temporarily to a location that has those services. And I'll give you the example that happens in the Cobden area. We don't have a hotel in Cobden. So if we have somebody who reaches out or we become aware of somebody who needs emergency shelter, we have to arrange transportation to get them to the closest motel, which could be Pembroke or Renfrew or even Eganville. Hopefully that helps create the picture. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mayville. Yes.
There I am on the picture. It's very helpful, this picture.
It is.
I also would like to compliment Jennifer on the report, and your group has compiled. I think it's outstanding. One question that comes to my mind is, are we tapped out for the funding that you're receiving? Can we not accept any other people to come into the programs? Are we at a have we reached the maximum for what you have allotted?
Thank you. Through chair to the councillor. Definitely there's budget constraints. Our programs for rent allowance and rent geared to income are fully subscribed. We only have intake for those programs as spaces become available. The same is true regarding the Canada-Ontario housing benefit. We do have assistance available through our homelessness prevention program still. However, that funding is limited, but we still have enough funding to be able to continue to accept folks through the emergency services that the homelessness prevention program supports offer.
Thank you.
Any more questions on information item number 1? Mary Mo.
Thank you. Just not so much a question, but a comment, and maybe Jennifer or the director could elaborate. But in answer to Councillor Mayville's question, the funds that we use are predominantly provincial funds that are transferred to us. They're not levy dollars, and so you know we have, I think, a 3-year projection on allocations or a 2-year projection. Is that fair?
Thank you, Warden. Any more questions? No? Well, thank you very much for all those answers. Tenancy supports. Any questions, comments? Housing registry management, waitlist management. Any questions, comments? Rent supplement, private market, rent geared to income? No. Homelessness prevention program, strong communities rent subsidy. Homelessness prevention program, rent allowance. Homelessness prevention program, emergency minor home repair assistance program. Investment in affordable housing revolving loan fund. Canada Ontario housing benefit. Affordable housing stock and upgrades? No, okay. Partnerships and committees, the Seaway Group Administration. Oh, Councillor Nicholson?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just, as I went through this list, I came across one that's approached us at the municipal level, and I'm pretty sure I've seen the director involved with them, but I just didn't see them listed, and I was hoping for some more information about it. And that's the Affordable Housing Alliance of the Ottawa Valley. If does that relate to this list, or is it? Can we get any amplification on that, please?
Director Lapine?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Nicholson. Good question. So that particular group is an independent group that we have consulted with. We've been invited to participate in, and we share information back and forth. That is a very live group that has created other groups as a result. So it's looking at nonprofit housing and other housing options. So we're not per se a partner in the group, but we are a consulting member as needed, and certainly should something become more viable, we'll see where our relationship goes. But as a county representative with the housing portfolio that we have, we're always looking at programs and services that are out there, and we are cross-sharing and cross-pollinating information. So we don't have it on here as a partnership that we are participating in on an active level. We're on an ad hoc kind of involvement, because it's definitely an independent group from the county, and we often get requests to speak at different events and different presentations, which we don't list here, because that is not this list is not really our membership based group, but we are definitely involved and keep communication going, and certainly are there to provide any support and assistance, because we see this group growing over the next little while, and I think there's a few spin-off groups that have also been created. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any questions on the Seaway Group? None. The Ontario Municipal Social Services Association Housing and Homelessness Network? Seeing none. Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association? Renfrew County Green Operations and Asset Management Committee? Housing Strategic Steering Committee? Built for Zero Canada? Okay, number 3, homelessness enumeration point in time count. Warden Emo.
I'm sorry, if I might just back to number 2, to the director and Jennifer. I believe you folks also sit on the situational tables as they exist in the county.
Thank you, Warden, and through you, or thank you, Chair, through you to Warden. We do have a spot on the situation table, but it's more through the Ontario Works program, and because we're an integrated department in terms of the work that our staff do, that we do share that information across. So it's more specific to the Ontario Works. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the homelessness enumeration point in time count. Councillor Service.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question is, the statistics you gather are obviously very important in terms of finding out where the needs are and getting funding. And you mentioned that there's 43 documented people experiencing homelessness in Renfrew County. And you also made reference to the fact that there's probably more. So are there any government solutions or programs or anything that we're doing to get out there and try and find these individuals who are slipping through the cracks or couch surfing? Is there anything we can do to find those missing individuals who have a need?
Ms. Dombrowski.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the councillor. Definitely wanting to be able to, understand the various experiences people have with homelessness, but also who is experiencing homelessness now are first and foremost, on our minds when we're looking at, housing services and through our integrated services, with Ontario Works. In some situations, It's not just a matter of not having enough housing stock. There's complexities that can be there regarding health circumstances and situational circumstances that can make it very difficult for somebody to be able to get to a housing opportunity or even maintain themselves within a housing opportunity. Our wraparound supports really focus on keeping those folks on our radar and conversant with them as best as we can. We want to keep the communication going. We want to take a health first approach and trying to make sure that, you know, they're connected with, you know, health professionals, that they're connected with financial supports, that they're having basic needs, you know, taken care of, you know, some core, you know, rudimentary basic needs such as food, having warm jackets and so forth. So we really do focus on not having people fall through the gaps. We try to keep the person connected so that over the long term, we're able to help them with their housing stability and success in that area. And that looks very different. It's really an individual experience. For some people, they may be homeless for a week. Others, it may be years. Homelessness may be sporadic, where they're able to maintain for a year, and then something happens and they're homeless again for 6 months. So our approaches, although not enough, and I never do think there's enough, but we're constantly striving to ensure that those who are wanting supports and wanting to be connected, that we're here for them, and we're going to help support them where they're asking to be supported, and stay with them on the path so that we can hopefully, you know, find some opportunities and get them into a home of their own. And we do see success in that area as well, but it's not always quick, unfortunately.
Director Lupine.
Thank you, Chair, and to the board. Just to also respond to that question, because I think Jennifer is speaking to our experience, but we're one of many agencies that have, you know, the need to help homeless in the county. There's several agencies that are working on that, and one of the good things that I can speak to is that we're connected to all these agencies. So it takes a large number of people to provide supports and to reach out. So often, and you know, I think mental health is a good example. They also have, you know, part of their mandate to assist people who are also experiencing homelessness. We have an after-hours support that we work with, partnered between Housing and our Ontario Works team, where we provide after-hours support until 10 o'clock at night, where people can call a number and we'll get them into an emergency situation, because as you probably all know, we have no shelters here in the county of Renfrew, so we look at using our local motels and hotels. But we work in great partnership to try to get information out there and to be able to assist not only the folks that come through our doors, but also other agencies as they're working with you know, people who are experiencing homelessness or who are precariously housed, as we often hear them talk about, you know, couch surfing. So you'll find that almost all of the social service agencies in the County of Renfrew have that as part of their goal, to assist people who are homeless. And I think part of our work is to make sure that we keep our services up to date, keep our information up to date, and continue to be regular attendees at meetings so that we are making sure that we're collecting as much information as we can and sharing what we can with folks. We do find that we have a number of people who will not work with us. It's part of, you know, it could be, you know, I don't work with government, or I don't want to, you know, be part of that. So we hope that they will access other services, and we often will identify to another service that we're aware of somebody who's not willing to work with us, but maybe they will work with you. So, you know, we can't speak to every situation, but we're definitely quick to respond. And we know that our partners in mental health and you know, through Family and Children Services, who also house people who are homeless, and other services such as the Grind and such in the city of Pembroke, and we've got services throughout the county, that they all have an eye to that particular problem. It is a prevalent issue in the county. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments or questions? So I need a mover and a seconder to accept the report as a whole. That is moved by Councillor Mayville. Seconded? Councillor Service. Oh my gosh. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Any new business? Seeing none, there's nothing for a closed meeting. Before we say the next meeting, I'd like to thank you all for your reports. The information is just, it's actually mind-boggling, the amount of work that gets done, and congratulations on that point in time. I'm sure it was a lot of work, a lot of hours put into that, and I thank you for all your information. So the date of the next meeting is Wednesday, February 15th, and I will adjourn. All in favor? Oh, I don't, okay. Mover, Warden Emo, seconded by Mayor, yes, Councillor Girls. All in favor? We are adjourned. Okay. Now we go into the next meeting. Welcome back. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this Community Services Committee meeting for the County of Renfrew. Roll call.
Yes, Chair, roll has been taken, and we have quorum.
Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none. The minutes of the previous meeting held on October 12, 2022, which are attached to this, have been approved by the Warden and CAO Clerk. Delegations, there were none at the time of mailing. The Community Services Department, the first thing there is the department report by Director Lapine, please.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to the Community Services Committee. My report begins on page 2. I have an information item that is, it's called Community Housing Priorities Projects Renfrew, and this is a letter that we received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding a business case that we had submitted last year. We had submitted a business case for additional funding to build an additional affordable housing building on property that we are currently building an affordable housing build on. This was a very last minute ask out by the ministry, and we had an opportunity to submit a business case. They have subsequently told us at the time that our business case was not accepted, but they will review it again at the end of February. So we're very hopeful that they will consider it and potentially grant us more funding for additional housing, affordable housing that we're building currently in the city of Pembroke. Item number 2 is just giving folks an update on the Ontario Municipal Social Services Association, OMSA is what we call it. We had a policy conference that we attended. The whole management team was able to attend in Toronto in December. This is a really big conference. It brings together all of the municipal social services, specifically Ontario Works, childcare and early years, and housing. It was a very well-attended conference with some very high-level keynote speakers and lots of leaders speaking on a variety of topics, which I've contained in my report. But you will see here that there were some very key conversations taking place that we haven't really had conversations on in the last few years, but are trending across Canada, which would be things such as the decriminalization of illicit drugs, talking about human services integration, economic recovery, public policy, et cetera. It was a very good conference, and we took a lot of information back that we're still digesting and working through. And that, Chair, completes my report. But before we move on, because the next part will be Ontario Works in Childcare and Early Years, I do have, and I'll just ask Sean or Tina to put it up on the screen, we do have our organizational chart for our department, where the Community Services Department might be a little hard to see, so we'll make sure to get a copy out to everybody. But this just lets you know the structure of our department, so that you can see that we have housing and homelessness, we have the Ontario Works program, and the childcare and early years, and that just lets you see there that we have approximately 57 staff that we work with to deliver the programs, some of which you've already heard and some that you're going to hear more about. But that just gives you a little bit of an idea of the positions and how we're structured here. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that visual. It's quite helpful. Yes. Okay, do I need to accept this report or just? Okay. So next is the Ontario Works Division report. I'll call upon Ms. Andrea Patrick.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And through you to committee, good afternoon, everyone. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to, before I start into the first information item, just take a moment to introduce the Ontario Works supervisors who are at the back of the room today. We have with us April Muldoon, who is the Ontario Works supervisor for Renfrew, Arnprior, and Killaloe sites. And we have Jamie Sydock, who is the Ontario Works supervisor for the Pembroke site, which is here in this building. So the Ontario Works supervisors work very hard with all of our staff in administering all of our programs, which I'll launch into talking a little bit about in information item number 1. So a brief overview of the Ontario Works services. Social assistance in Ontario is made up of 2 programs, the Ontario Works program and the Ontario Disability Support Program. The municipalities deliver Ontario Works, and the province delivers the Ontario Disability Support Program. The current Ontario Works caseload in Renfrew County is just under 1,200 active cases. A case is a family unit, so it may be a single person, or it may be a single parent, or it may be a couple with multiple dependent children. So the number of beneficiaries or family members that our staff are working with on Ontario Works is 1,991 individuals. So our staff are responsible to determine eligibility for payments and benefits under the Ontario Works program, and as well to deliver person-centered supports to assist individuals who may be experiencing some obstacles or challenges and help them access the services and supports that they need. So some of these supports may be helping them to secure safe and stable housing, childcare services, crisis and safety supports, health supports, including mental health and addictions treatment, as well as to access educational upgrading and other skills training opportunities. The Ontario Works budget for last year was, the gross budget for 2022 was $16.7 million. That includes benefit payments going out to clients, as well as the cost of administration for the program. That is a gross cost. We are cost shared by the province. We're cost shared at a rate of 50-50 for the cost of administration, and benefits to clients are 100% paid for by the province. We have 25 staff working across 4 offices, so as I mentioned, Renfrew, Pembroke, Killaloe, and Arnprior. In addition to the regular Ontario Works assistance, we have a number of other financial assistance programs that we can assist low-income individuals with, and I've listed them in the report. So temporary care assistance is a financial payment that families are eligible for if they've had a child placed into their temporary care or custody. In those situations, we do assess eligibility based on the income and assets available to the child, not to the family. We also have an emergency assistance program, and that's a program for individuals who may have income or assets that exceed program thresholds. However, they're experiencing an emergency that is posing a threat to a member of their family. And in that circumstance, we can assist with some short-term financial supports. We also issue funeral benefits to individuals with family members in receipt of Ontario Works or Ontario Disability, or who would have been eligible income-wise for Ontario Works at the time of their death, and that assists with family members to cover the costs of funerals and burials. We also have a discretionary benefits program, and this is, we're mandated to provide discretionary benefits to both Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program clients. So these would be items that are not covered by the regular benefits, but maybe items like medical devices or other items that they need to assist in their day-to-day living. We also have the homelessness prevention program. This program, Ms. Dombrowski touched on it in her report. We partner, the Ontario Works partners with the community housing for this portion of the homelessness prevention program to assist individuals who may be homeless or may be at risk of becoming homeless. And this program covers things including rental arrears, heat or hydro arrears to prevent disconnection of services, as well as some emergency shelter supports for people who are homeless. So as you can see, we do have a number of financial assistance programs that our staff work with individuals to help assess eligibility for. We definitely encourage that if anyone knows of anyone that may need assistance, that they direct them to contact our office. If we can't help them with one of our programs, we will certainly have staff, help connect them to other services or supports that may be available in the community for them. We do print checks or direct deposit statements for all of our programs on a daily basis in our local office, so there's the administration of that as well that we look after. Moving on to item number 2, this is a list of some of the partnerships and committees that our staff and management are a part of. It's not an exhaustive list, as there are a lot of programs, both provincially and locally, that we participate in. I believe Warden Iman had mentioned earlier the situation table, which is now called the Renfrew County Risk Watch Table, and that is a program that we are sitting at. I didn't have it included in the list, but we are a part of that, and that is to assist individuals who may be at an acute elevated risk of harm to themselves or others, and allows for multiple service providers to meet around the table and discuss the best course of assisting that particular individual. It's very important for our staff and to be well connected with other community agencies and participating in all these tables, so that they are always very up to date on all the services that are available in the community, all the new and changing programs, and that they have good working relationships with other service providers. We often work doing joint case planning to ensure that individuals who need multiple services and supports at the same time, that we can work together to make sure that we have the person has access to all those supports in a very cohesive fashion. I won't go through each and every one of the committees, as I did put some details through the report, but I'm happy afterwards if there's any questions about any of those to answer those. So I'll move to item number 3. This is Service System Manager onboarding session. On November 30th, Director Lepine and the Ontario Works Management team, as well as our caseworker who's our transformation lead for Employment Services Transformation, did attend a meeting in Kingston with the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, as well as the Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, to talk about the Employment Services Transformation that's going on across Ontario. So by way of some background for this committee, the two ministries are partnering to work on the transformation of how employment services are delivered across the province. The Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development is identifying one service system manager for each of their 15 economic regions across the province. Currently, we would have several service providers in Renfrew County, but there is going to be one service provider for our Kingston Pembroke region is the name of the economic region. So the meeting was to introduce Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program management staff to the new service system manager, which is Serco Canada. They will be taking over the delivery of employment services effective October of 2023 for our area. So they want to work very collaboratively with all of the social assistance offices in all of those areas or across all of their areas to make sure to build some good mechanisms for supporting clients that may be in receipt of social assistance and making sure that they can access the employment services that they provide. So the two ministries have built some joint tools. So we will have some common technology where social assistance staff and Employment Ontario staff will be able to enter information about individuals so that they can work collaboratively and don't have to have job seekers that are answering questions twice. So one of the new tools is a common assessment. So it's a number of questions about the individual's employment readiness and background, and that will be information that is able to be seen by both social assistance and Employment Ontario staff. So we're at the very early stages of planning. As I say, we don't go live with this change in our area until the fall. But between now and then, we're going to be working really closely with Serco Canada to build some local referral processes and help make sure that when we have clients that are in receipt of Ontario Works who are job ready, that we can connect them quickly with Employment Ontario to make sure that they're accessing the jobs and the other training opportunities that they may be eligible for. At the meeting, both Director Lepine and myself had an opportunity to present a little bit of information about Renfrew County and about some of the information and challenges that our job seekers may experience. And I did include for committee the handout that was provided at that session just to give Serco some information about Renfrew County. And as well, attachment number 2 is the slide deck that was shared with us at the meeting. Moving on to item number 4, this is regarding the Grind Pembroke's Out of the Cold service launch. The Grind has recently extended their service hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. 7 days a week through the period of December through to the end of March in order to ensure that individuals who are experiencing homelessness can have a safe and warm place to go. They are not a shelter, but they are just opening their doors to make sure that people have access to a coffee, a warm meal, laundry facilities, other supports, a safe place to go to get out of the cold. So as Ms. Dombrowski had spoke about earlier, we do work very closely with the Grind in our Built for Zero partnership. We have 2 Ontario Works caseworkers who are our homelessness leads that attend the Grind 1 morning a week and help to be on site and connect with individuals who may be in need of our services. Certainly, we continue, as has been spoken about earlier, to work really closely with individuals that are experiencing homelessness, individuals who may have exhausted program limits for emergency sheltering to be put up in motels. We would still continue to work with those individuals to try to help connect them with more stable housing opportunities. The next item, number 5, is the Youth Wellness Hub. So the Youth Wellness Hub is located on Nelson Street in Pembroke, and it's a service to help support a variety of needs of youth between the ages of 12 to 25 years of age. So they have services relating to mental health, substance abuse, primary care, education, and housing. As well, we work closely with this youth hub. We have Ontario Works staff there every second Tuesday just to be available if any of the youth have questions about our programs or services or how to apply, and so that we can work with them and easily connect them to our services. And I've included as Appendix 4 the hub's calendar of events for the month of December, and you'll note that our staff's attendance on there is indicated on the calendar. Item number 6, the Algonquin College Program Advisory Committee. On November 7th, I attended the Algonquin College's Program Advisory Committee for their Social Service Worker Program. This is one of the program advisory committees that I'm a part of. This group meets twice a year to gather input from employers in the community about some of the skills that we may be seeking in some individuals that are taking their programs and what we may be looking for in new graduates to help them keep the information in their programming fresh and make sure that they are developing programming that's meeting the needs of the community. Item number 7, the Community Forum. This community forum was held on November 10th at the Knights of Columbus Hall. We did have several staff from community services attend and deliver a presentation on our services, as well as learn about other services in the community. This was an annual event that has been happening for a long time. It was suspended during COVID, so it was nice to see this in-person event starting up again. It's an excellent way for our staff to, again, network with other community service providers and, both share information about our services as well as learn of any program updates from our other community service providers. And the final item in my report is a bit about the social assistance application process. So just, again, a little bit of background information. The Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services has been working over the past 2 years on transforming and modernizing social assistance programming in Ontario. One of the things that they are doing is trying to introduce more digital tools and self-serve options for clients in order to make sure that individuals have choices about how they're accessing programs and making things more convenient and more modern. One of the changes that they have been working on is a centralized intake method for both Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program. And County of Renfrew was one of 7 consolidated municipal service managers to participate in the initial pilot of this new centralized intake method back in November of 2020. So our staff and management have participated on a joint project team with the province of Ontario since the start of this pilot and provided feedback about centralized intake and about some of the ways that it can be changed in order to make sure that recipients who are needing to apply are able to access the tools successfully and having a good service experience. Over the past 2 years, they have onboarded all other consolidated municipal service managers. So the province is now delivering centralized intake for all offices. And their goal in doing so was to digitally and electronically grant 70% of applications that come into the centralized intake by using risk-based eligibility determination framework and digital tools. They have not, as of yet, been able to meet that goal. Approximately half of the applications are being deferred back to the local offices across the province to make the eligibility determination. So there's still a lot of work being done at the local offices to determine eligibility for recipients and to grant cases. So there are a number of challenges that the province recognizes and continues to work on. Certainly the program and the rules are very complex. There's different rules if a client is under the age of 18 or has a translator or other, or is homeless or needs immediate assistance. So this is something that is continuing to be something that is being worked on and is being looked at. So currently it's a blend where our local staff will have some files that will come to us that are already active, and then they will start working with individuals on other needs and case planning around enhancing their employability. And other cases will come to them to go through and make the eligibility decision. So Appendix 5 is a letter which the Ontario Municipal Social Services Association sent to our ministry on the 23rd of November regarding some of the issues that have been identified regarding the centralized intake process. And thank you, Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. So I'll go through all the items and ask if there's any questions on them. So information item number 1, overview of Ontario Work Services. No. Number 2, partnerships and committees. 3, service system manager onboarding session. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for all this information. It's been a lot today, so I appreciate it. I'm gonna have to absorb it, but I feel like I've missed the point on point number 3. I'm wondering if I can just have you review it or ask the Andrea to review it just shortly so I can appreciate the impact on the county, on her and her section. So please.
Ms.
Thank you,
Patrick?
Chair,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
through you to Councillor Nicholson. My apologies. It's challenging in terms of trying to include some of the background, and I'm very happy to offer a little bit of clarity and a little bit more information. So I think what I may have been remiss in perhaps explaining is, as part of, I talked a little bit about social assistance modernization and some of the changes that our ministry is looking at, both in terms of introducing digital tools and making the system more efficient for social assistance recipients and those in need of our services. One of the things that they, in the past, Ontario Works was a program where our staff would do financial eligibility determinations and would do employment counseling. And there was identified that there was some overlap in terms of staff time providing employment services and also the Employment Ontario systems providing employment services. So there was a recognition between the two ministries that they really wanted to identify a way to streamline and make sure that job seekers get to the Employment Ontario service providers, which is under the Ministry of MILTSD, and that social assistance staff that are working with Ontario Works clients are able to devote the majority of their time to working with individuals who need assistance with stability supports. So accessing the sort of things around stable housing and other services that they need. So that I think is a part of this transformation, and I think with MLITSD as well, part of it is a consolidation of who's delivering these, who are their Employment Ontario delivery agents. So in Renfrew County, we have Algonquin College Employment Ontario, we have On Track Employment Ontario, we have the Petawawa Military Family Resource Centre Employment Ontario, and you know, Kingston and you know, the other areas have multiple providers as well. This will now be consolidated under Circle Canada. So it will be one service provider for this entire region. And our region under MLITSD is called Kingston Pembroke. So they will have one service provider that is from Kingston through Renfrew County and that entire area. So a number of the Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program offices fall under that. There are a lot of unanswered questions as of yet, or information that hasn't been shared in terms of, you know, the local delivery providers. You know, how does that work? Where are the offices going to be located? And it's very much in the early days, and we don't have that information right now. The meeting that we attended was really to introduce us to the new service system manager and to just show us some of the next steps that over the next 9 months we will be having a lot of meetings to determine how we are going to connect with this new service system manager, how we are going to make sure that any clients we're working with who are eligible for their programs can be referred to them, and how we're going to make this successful in order to make sure that people who are ready for work can get to them and to their counselors. And that if people are working with the Employment Ontario counselors and then they're experiencing some life challenges and become maybe less able to participate, that they can still, you know, that we can connect with them and stay very much up to date on what's happening through these common tools and the computer technology that will have, both staff will have access to these notes. So it is a very large change. We are part of phase 2, so they've started this with some pilots, and it's very early days. There's not data available as far as how this is going. So I will definitely continue to keep this committee very well informed about the meetings that we attend and what we learn as we go forward. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you. Director Lupine?
Thank you, Chair. And just to build on what Andrea was saying, is because it is kind of old news, but new news. So several years ago, I brought forward to the then Social Services Committee, predates the naming of us as Community Services, that the province of Ontario was changing the way that Employment Ontario was being delivered across the province. So what was happening is province of Ontario had several hundred contracts with Employment Ontario providers throughout the province, and they wanted to change that to have only 15. They only wanted to have limited agreements. They, as Andrea had spoken to, in our area alone, we have multiple service providers, and that is going to change. So Ontario Works is a piece of what's happening, but it's a bigger change across the whole province of Ontario. And for our region, because we're in an economic region linked in with Kingston, and I remember some earlier comments about, hopefully they don't forget us up here from the Kingston spot, which was kind of the purpose of our attendance at this meeting, to make sure they really understood the importance of having a presence in Renfrew County. But the Employment Ontario program, which includes the apprenticeship and includes all the that's all being changed as well. It's much bigger than our piece. Our piece is a significant part, but the whole program is changing. So even in the Property and Development Department, where they have economic development, they're also being impacted by the change, going from multiple independent service providers to one for this whole stretch. So as Andrea brings back information on how it impacts Ontario Works, as we get closer to the implementation, you will probably hear through media changes that are going to impact the community as well, because the new Circle Canada has to decide how they're going to deliver, whether they're going to continue with the current service providers and subcontract, how they're going to do that. And we don't know what that looks like at this point. So expect big news to come out, as well as regular updates from us, because at the time that this was announced, they also announced we're transforming Ontario Works. So there's a lot of change that's been anticipated, and I think over the years we've seen the steps, but we're almost at that point now. And I look over to Councillor Grills, because she was very concerned, and I think rightfully so, that we don't, when we get lumped into Kingston, that we don't get overlooked in terms of service provision here. We're quite a ways away. How do we make sure that our needs are being heard? But I can assure you that our needs are being heard.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, please.
If you think that Renfrew County's small, imagine how I feel in Head Clare Mariah, is all I can say. I'm glad you're here to look out for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next item, the grinds at number 4. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Service.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question about, do you have any concerns when an entity like this is going to come in and take over from all these smaller entities that are servicing unique locations, let's say, like the PMFRC up on the Garrison? Are there any concerns that this Serco company will come in and consolidate, move these, smaller entities that were serving unique communities? Is there any concerns about job loss and about service levels, let's say, in these unique areas?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and to Councillor Service and the rest of the committee. Those are conversations that are going on. MLSTD, the other ministry, are having those conversations with their Employment Ontario providers. We're not privy to those conversations, but it's certainly been talked about over the last few years. They did start with 2 prototype areas in other parts of the province, and I think there are kinks that are being worked out. I don't have the answers to those conversations, though. I mean, in some communities, where the prototypes have taken place, they've actually just enlisted the current service providers. But Serco Canada is a large company. They are a worldwide company. They are present in other countries as well. And, you know, we don't know, but we're hopeful that their large presence and the fact that they've done this in other jurisdictions will lead to good outcomes in our community. Because you're right, there are current service providers that they know things are changing for them as well. Hope that answers. We're never privy to those conversations, but we know there's labor issues, and we know that it's a large company coming in and changing the look and feel of Employment Ontario, and has a potential to impact the local service. We're very keen on making sure they are aware of the services, and we know that Serco Canada has also met with the local Employment Ontario as well to speak to them. So we're just one group that they've met with, and you know, we make sure that, you know, they hear about the excellent partnerships that we have with the current service providers, and hopefully that carries some weight in their decision making.
Okay, item number 4, the grinds out of the cold service launch. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The recent decision for the grind to open from 10 to 8 sends a particular message to me as a councillor in the city of Pembroke. And the message is that the people that are going there during those hours are doing so to get away from the cold weather, hypothermia, exposure, etc. And also that they do not have a place to sleep. Would I be correct in assuming that they would stay there the entire night? Do you have any interaction with your staff with those people to see what their needs are? But it sounds to me like people are probably going there and perhaps falling asleep at a table after coffee because they don't want to go out and crawl into somebody's lobby or business, business entrance downtown or wherever it is, or somebody's home or garage and cake out, and have a sleep. Am I correct in assuming that the reasoning would be to give them a place to temporarily just get off the street because they do not have a place to go to?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Councillor Giacono. We interact regularly with the grind, and as I say, we have 2 homelessness leads that are regularly communicate with them and with their outreach worker, and also the coordinator for the Out of the Cold. And what we hear is that some individuals, certainly there are individuals that are going there and they're staying, throughout the night that don't have anywhere else to go. They also have individuals that may drop in for a coffee and may leave. Some people come and go. Some people may be housed and are just coming for social and getting a cup of coffee. So there's a little bit of a mix of things going on, but certainly there are individuals that are, regularly staying for a bulk of the evening or the night due to not having anywhere else to go. So as I think Director Lepine spoke about earlier, some of the individuals may be that they're not willing to interact with government services and not willing to, take other supports that are offered. Others may have exhausted the supports that are available under our programs. As we've talked about, there are, program limits. There may be some that we are not able to house at emergency shelter due to, behavior or other issues. And there may be people that are still working towards finding other avenues or trying to access, treatment or other services in order to be able to be more stably housed. So I think there's to answer your question, a mix, but there is a regular presence of some individuals that are spending a good portion of the night there, and others that may be, coming and going.
Okay. Item 5, the Youth Wellness Hub. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence and committee. I did have the opportunity to be there during their grand opening. And I have to tell you how impressed I was with the facility and its setup. It's perfect for a youth seeking some assistance. And I was very impressed by a young lady who was staying there and who spoke about the kind human interaction that she received while she was there. and how that would change her life. And to me, a little bit of kindness goes a long way. You know, there's professional staff there as well, but this young lady who probably, who knows, I don't know what her issues were, but she needed to be there. And she spoke about how safe she felt there, how comfortable she felt there, and how that facility would have changed her life. So I just want to know, I want you to know that. Maybe not all of you had the opportunity to hear that, but that was what was said in the grand opening. They called on her to speak, and obviously, from that perspective, that youth wellness hub and that facility is much needed. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and I'm sure we don't hear enough about the good things and the positive outcomes of a lot of this work. So thank you. I'm sorry. Councillor Mayville.
There we go. Thank you, Andrea, for information overload. Even though we house in our facility, your department, one of your departments, I had no idea what you do. And to be honest with you, what I would like to ask, would I be able to have someone come to one of our council meetings and describe this to our councillors, and if not just our council, surrounding council, because I'm sure there's other townships that are related also to our office, some night and in the future. I think it would be really good for our community to get the word out that what is offered, and so that people realize where they can go.
Director Lupine.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, Councillor Mainville, we're very happy to work with you on that, and we feel that information is important, and having an understanding of our services and what we can offer is always something we strive to do. So we can certainly talk offline about a date and time that works for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that request. Okay, number 7, community forum. Number 8, social assistance application process. Okay. I'm scrolling. So next we have the Child Care and Early Years Division report by Margot Smith, Manager. Margot.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. Good afternoon. I would, with your permission, would like to start by introducing one of the supervisors for our Child Care and Early Years Division, who is here with us at the back of the room. Her name is Tanis Levine, and she is the Early Years Supervisor for our team. We do have one other supervisor. Her name is Amanda Kuchkowski. She's the Child Care and Early Years Supervisor. Unfortunately, she was committed to represent us at a meeting with our Eastern Region Working Group, so she wasn't able to make it today. I'd like to start with my apologies. My report begins on page 29 of your package, and I would like to start with my information items. Number 1 is an overview of childcare and early years services. So the Child Care and Early Years Division is provincially mandated through the Child Care and Early Years Act as the designated service system manager of Child Care and Early Years programming in Renfrew County. We are responsible for the management of provincial and federally allocated funds for childcare and early years programming. And in 2023, our childcare and early years budget for the County of Renfrew is just over $17.5 million. There are currently in the County of Renfrew 30 licensed childcare programs, which that we have various service agreements with, and that includes 28 childcare centers and 2 licensed home childcare agencies, which has a total of 2,196 licensed spaces at this time. The responsibilities within our division include management of fee subsidy funding, and this is funding that is that it would assist eligible families with the cost of licensed childcare for children up to 13 years of age, and could support eligible families by paying up to 100% of their costs. Applications are completed and assessed by our staff. We have eligibility coordinators who assess for eligibility and monitor ongoing cases with those funds. We directly operate a licensed home childcare agency within the County of Renfrew, and this supports home providers across the county to become licensed and operate childcare within their home. At this time, with our agency, we currently have 7 active homes, 4 in Pembroke, 1 in Haley Station, 1 in Eganville, and 1 in Armprior. We also directly operate inclusion services or special needs resourcing, and this is to support licensed providers across the County of Renfrew so that children with varying needs and abilities can attend their programs in an inclusive way. We provide funding and oversight of the early on child and family centers throughout the county, and they provide free high-quality programming for families and children from birth to 6 years of age. We have 6 stationary early on programs throughout the county, 1 in Deep River, 1 in Petawawa, 2 in Pembroke, 1 in Renfrew, and 1 in Armprior. One of the Pembroke sites is a Francophone early on center. And there are also 2 mobile units that move throughout the county. The Toy Bus, which is based out of community Killaloe area and serves rural, various rural areas in the county, and an Indigenous-led early on center, which is led by the Bonachera Algonquin First Nation. I think it's important to mention too, just as an aside, when we were speaking about Francophone services, within our team, our full community services team actually, we do have bilingual staff who are able to provide services for all of our community services programming. So I think that's important to mention. We also have been working within our staff on the implementation of the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare System, otherwise known, we call it CWELC, and this is the federal provincial agreement for licensed childcare programs to provide the average of $10 to $12 a day childcare fees by 2025, 2026 for children up to age 6. So the CWELC system is intended to build on the successes of Ontario's existing early learning and childcare system by increasing quality, accessibility, affordability, and inclusivity. I can report that in the County of Renfrew, we have signed CWELC service agreements with 28 out of the 30 licensed childcare agencies, and they are fully enrolled. The 2 agencies that did not opt in at this time, it did not fit for them at this time. So what this means is that these agencies, these licensed agencies, have reduced their parent fees at this time, as of December 31st, to an average of a 50% reduction of parent fees, and that went retroactive to April 1st of 2022. So with this CWELC system and more affordable childcare fees, we certainly expect to see an increased demand for licensed spaces across the province, and certainly within the County of Renfrew, we will be working with the Ministry of Education as well as our licensed provider partners in the community to examine opportunities for growth and expansion, and that there's more to come on that, I'm sure, and we will keep committee informed on anything that comes our way with that. My information piece number 2, partnerships and committees. As was the case with my colleagues in the Renfrew County Housing Corporation and Ontario Works, you can see that there is a long list of networks and groups that the Childcare and Early Years team is a part of. There are specific working groups for most of the programs that we are involved in, and our staff take part in engaging within the Eastern region as well as throughout the province to share ideas, ask questions, and learn together. Item number 3, the 2023 Early Years and Childcare Funding Approach. There is an attachment memorandum that's dated December 5th, 2022, and this is from Holly Moran, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister with the Ministry of Education in the Early Years and Childcare Division. So this memo details the funding approach that the Ministry of Education is taking in 2023 and speaks to the various investments and any important changes that have been made. It also breaks down the funding allocations that have been determined for each municipality in the province, and I do believe that the County of Renfrew areas have been highlighted for your reference. Information item number 4, the Ontario Municipal Social Services Association, as Director Lapine mentioned earlier, OMSA, a letter to the Ministry of Education. So we have attached this letter as appendix number 2. And that, again, is a letter from OMSA to Holly Moran, the Assistant Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Education, to bring attention to some of the issues that have been, some of the issues and challenges we have seen with the province-wide with the implementation of the CWELC system. This includes some workforce challenges with recruitment and retention in the childcare and early years sector, accountability and transparency relating to funding, and capacity concerns for increasing spaces. The letter does propose some solutions on how service system managers like ourselves and the Ministry of Education can improve communication to focus on the challenges and move forward in a seamless way with further implementation of this system. Information item number 5 is introduction of Bill C-35, an act respecting early learning and childcare in Canada. So this is just an information piece that we wanted to share that on December 8th, 2022, Bill C-35 was introduced in the House of Commons, and it is proposing that the principles of a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system are enshrined into federal law, and in order to ensure high-quality learning and care going forward into future generations. So this is just in the introductory stages. We will be continuing to follow any progress, and we'll certainly keep committee updated as we learn new information. So my next item, Chair, is a bylaw, the County of Renfrew 2023 Childcare Early On and CWELC Transfer Payment Agreement. Would you like me to read that recommendation?
Please, yes.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the Community Services Committee recommends to County Council that a bylaw be adopted authorizing the Childcare and Early Years Division in the County of Renfrew to enter a 2023 Childcare Early On and CWELC Transfer Payment Agreement with the Minister of Education.
Could I get a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Grills. Discussion?
Would you like me to provide background?
Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Chair, to committee. On December 13th, 2022, the Ministry of Education sent out the 2023 to 2027 Early Years and Childcare Funding and Transfer Payment Agreement, and this reflects the funding allocations for our division for the County of Renfrew for 2023. And I did provide a breakdown of the funding, the $17.5 million in terms of the various allocations, and it is attached as Appendix 3.
Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And that, Chair, concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the top of the Child Care and Early Years report. Any questions on information item number 1? No? Yes. Councillor Nicholson. Thought we saw a hand there.
I wasn't sure if it was 1 or 2 or 3, so yeah, I think it's a bit of a couple of them. But I spoke with the director already, Chair, about this, so she's probably expecting the question. In our rural community, as an example, and I'm only supposing that it must be the same out for the remainder of Renfrew County, there is a huge demand for childcare, especially childcare that's subsidized between $10 and $12, especially given we have so many more people working from home. And we're seeing it in our rural community where you have these people cottages have been turned into homes, permanent homes. They've brought their kids, but they're not old enough to go to school. I know the program here, and it's been explained to me in depth. I just wonder, what else can we do, whether it's at the county level or at the lower tier level, what else can we do in order to encourage or ensure that additional childcare spaces are generated in the rural communities?
Director Lapine?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee, because I think these questions have come up. You're not the only one that has raised them. And I know that Ms. Smith can speak more to, some of the more practical things. But we do have something coming in the report next month. We've just received some information from the Ministry of Education. There is, and you've probably heard throughout the last little while, that there has been talk, there's been announcements that they want to increase childcare spaces across the province. And we have just received some information that we're still digesting and working through in terms of what that looks like for our area. We have we've come across some issues that is not uncommon to us. It's happening across the sector. And one of those issues is having enough staff to provide the childcare services. So, in our communities, we have existing licensed childcare facilities that, may be looking at expanding down the road. There may be some folks out there that want to open a licensed childcare facility. What we're hearing across the province is that there's a real shortage of early childhood educators to be able to staff these locations. Not unlike the health sector in terms of what they're facing as well with staffing challenges. One of the things that our department has taken as a focus is looking at really expanding the licensed home area, because licensed home, that's where somebody is providing childcare in their home, and they come forward and they, the process, they go through the Ministry of Education to be licensed. We work side by side with them to ensure that they're meeting all of those criteria to be licensed, and then once they're licensed, we enter into service agreements with the licensed facility so we can flow funding and provide support. But we find that there is an interest in growing that sector. That is probably a little easier at this point in time, given that it's smaller. But with the recent announcement, there's funding coming, there's information from the province on how we look at growing the sector, and we hope to have more digestion on that information for the next committee. I know that Margot and her staff work very closely with all of our current childcare providers. We do not have a municipally run childcare facility in the county of Renfrew. I know there are some jurisdictions where that may exist, but we don't have a municipally run daycare or childcare facility in the county, but we are supporting we support all of them that are licensed, and the 28 with the CWELC, but we work with all 30 to ensure that the funding that we do get flows to them, that we're providing them with lots and lots of things to keep them going, and also the support our staff provides so that we are able to keep them viable, because that is also a concern. Certainly in some jurisdictions, childcare facilities, especially during the pandemic, closed and didn't reopen. I think, Chair, if it's okay with you, maybe Ms. Smith can talk a little bit more about the growth of the sector, because I think that's really, those are the questions that have come forward. How do we grow it in our communities? And this is high level that I'm speaking about, and I think Margot can speak to, kind of the more grassroots. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. I think Director Lapine has touched on some of the challenges that we're seeing at this point, and certainly we do plan to bring some more information to our next committee meeting that we've just kind of gotten and are just in the process of absorbing and what that means. I think there is definitely an appetite within some of our existing providers that there may be some opportunities for expansion even within their existing spaces. But it is, at this time, I think the biggest challenge is the staffing piece, and we are going to have to try to wade through that to in order to build upon the need for more spaces. But yes, I do agree, and sorry, I'll just add one more thing. I do agree that, we directly operate a licensed home childcare agency, and certainly our staff are in the process of continually promoting that program, and certainly if any of your areas, if you hear of any interest, please direct them our way to find out more about how that works, because our agency is licensed already, so that we do a screening process. Our staff will work with any interested providers to become a part of our agency, and so certainly any interest in that regard, please have them get in contact with our staff for sure.
Supplemental?
Thank you, Chair. I just also would look forward to the report. I'm eager. If there are any identified obstacles or hindrances that we're aware of at the lower tier, and staff at, for example, in Whitewater Region are investigating too, if there are zoning things that are restricting this, please, if you can identify that, then we can also attack that and make sure that if it is only qualifications, let's limit it to that only restriction and remove all other barriers. So I'm looking forward to the report. Thank you so much.
Very good points, yes. Okay, we'll continue on. Oh, sorry. Councillor Service.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow on this topic, are there any statistics or data available to individual municipalities in terms of how great the need is in our own municipalities, how many spaces are needed, so that we can address that issue within our own municipalities to encourage, and maybe through bylaws or any other means, to encourage individuals or businesses to expand their spaces or to open new spaces?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Service, thank you for the question. I think there are some means for us to get some of that data. I don't have it at my disposal right at this time, but I think there are some means for us to try to ascertain what that looks like, and certainly, we can take a look at perhaps what do those numbers look like, and I can tell you that the information that we've just received does give a general County of Renfrew number about some of the spaces that may be necessary, but it hasn't been broken down, and so that's something that we could take a look at.
Councillor Nicholson.
Just to give you the appreciation of the concern, I was advised by a resident in Beachburg that they are 150th on the wait list for a spot here in Pembroke. That's for a newborn. So that's a measure of the angst in our rural community. So yes, we're very eager to see whatever we can do to help facilitate it, but just perspective.
Thank you. Councillor Lapine, Director Lapine.
There's promotions today. Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to respond, and because you highlighted something that I think is really important, because I think data is very important, and we can get a sense as to what the wait list looks like by communicating with our licensed childcare providers. But what really is really important is to understand where people want childcare. And I spoke to a person not that long ago, probably similar person, who said, I live here, but I don't want my childcare here because I work in Pembroke. So, having information about children in a community doesn't necessarily equate to the same information in terms of, what kind of childcare is needed. So we're finding that that's becoming more and more prevalent, and we want to work with the ministry to see how we can get that information how do we find out where the needs are? Because I can tell you right now, the need is everywhere. We definitely know that all of our licensed childcare facilities have wait lists, and we continually hear from people in the community saying, is there a way, that I can, get some other way to access it? And I've certainly heard from, mayors in other parts of our county saying, we have certain needs in our community. How do we best meet those needs? And it's really hard for us to have an answer without having a real sense as to, where the childcare is needed. And there is also time of day childcare. So, any hospital nearby tends to have needs for childcare that operates outside of the traditional childcare facility timeframe. So I think there's a lot more information that we need to hear about. And certainly as you're working in your communities, this is opportunity. These are business opportunities for people to enter into. So if you are hearing from people who are looking at how can I help my community, what business opportunities are out there, don't hesitate to also suggest that providing childcare is a business opportunity that can be very successful in many people's lives. And, that's at a small scale, but there's also opportunity for large scale as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Warden Emo.
Thank you. And just further to the director's comments, if someone does decide to enter into the field of providing childcare, they're not left out on an island. If I remember correctly, you have a series of annual events, professional development that are supportive of people who are running childcare facilities and home-based care.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to address that? Okay. Margo?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Warden Emo. Yes, you're correct. All of the providers that we deal with and all of the licensed home operators that are out there as well are definitely supported by a number of professional development opportunities throughout the year. We have full day opportunities. We have evening opportunities. We definitely are constantly looking for new opportunities to provide training and development for our providers. So definitely, that's a given for sure.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity, I think, to attend a couple of them, so I remembered them, and I learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you. Okay. We'll continue on. Item number 2, partnerships and committees. Number 3, 2023 early years and childcare funding approach. Item 4, the Ontario Municipal Social Services Association letter. Item 5, the introduction of Bill C-35. Number 6, bylaws. The County of Renfrew payment agreement, transfer payment agreement. We're all done, yeah. Okay. And that's it. Yes. So we'll need a mover and a seconder to adopt the report as a whole. Councillor Mayville and Warden Emo. Okay. No new business. Any new business? Oh, darn. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Any new business?
Through you, Chair, none at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. There is nothing for a closed meeting. The date of the next meeting is Wednesday, February 15th. And once again, I'd like to thank you for your very detailed reports and all your very knowledgeable answers to our questions. And you're right, it is information overload, absolutely. Anyways, thank you, and we will see this committee together again on the 15th, and we are adjourned. We're in a seconder. Councillor Jacquinot and Councillor Grills. All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.